Thank you, Speaker. My question's for the Premier. Premier, we know that bullying, sexual harassment and sexual assault has and will continue to be perpetrated on women and people working in the New South Wales Parliament. Will you immediately act to establish an independent complaints process for the New South Wales Parliament so that people experiencing bullying, sexual harassment and sexual assault have a clear and supported and independent way to report these incidents?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the member for Newtown for her question and ask for her indulgence in outlining briefly in my response both what exists already and what action I've already taken in relation to this matter. First of all, it goes without saying that all workplaces should be places of safety and respect, and this is especially the case for all those who work in the New South Wales Government and for all those who work in the New South Wales Parliament and for all those who work in New South Wales ministerial offices. And I also want to place on my record my absolute commendation and respect for Ms Higgins, whose courageous strength and courage allowed conversations like this to be had. And as the member for Newtown would be aware, the responsibility of workplace matters of Parliament and its staff, including electorate officers, rests and is overseen by the presiding officers and the Department of Parliamentary Services. In relation to staff in this building and in electorate offices, there are two policies which govern how to deal with these matters. There's a grievance policy which works...
Speaker.
You rise on a point of order.
Thank you, Speaker. With the greatest respect, Premier, I believe that all of the women and people in this building that are across this issue are aware of those policies. We're also aware that those policies were in place.
What's the point of order, please?
The point of order is relevance. I asked the Premier if she will commit to immediately establishing an independent complaints process so that people have the ability to apply it.
I'm sure the Premier is aware of that question.
Those policies were in place when these harassments and intimidation has happened before.
Thank you. Premier will continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I outlined to the member for Newtown, I was actually about to advise the House of action I'd taken, but I thought it was important for the members of the public to know what already exists in relation to these matters and what I've done since that time. And I say this, Mr. Speaker, and I will go back and I do want to get on the record all the processes we have in place currently for this Parliament and also for ministerial officers. But given the member for Newtown is likely to continue her interjections, I will get to the end of my response before I go back to the other information. So whilst a number of provisions already exist in relation to what governs staff in this building, in electorate offices and also ministerial staff, given the actions and courage demonstrated by Ms Higgins and the shock and, I think, absolute horror all of us felt when she explained what had occurred to her, that on the 18th of February I formally requested former Sex Discrimination Commissioner and former New South Wales Minister Prue Gowd, who's now a professor at UWS, to formally review the processes in place for ministerial staff to make certain we have the best practice processes for making and handling complaints about bullying, harassment or sexual assault. I chose at the time not to do this publicly because I wanted to make sure that all the processes we have in this place in ministerial offices are as robust and as precise and as fair and transparent as they need to be. I've also asked that the review include consultation with the presiding officers and the Department of Parliamentary Services in relation to these practices to make sure that any allegations of bullying, harassment or sexual misconduct concerning staff in this place are handled appropriately. And a report of Minister Gowd's findings and any recommendations will be provided to me within the next month. Now, I'll also outline the terms of reference that I've asked Ms Gowd to look at. The process by which staff may make a complaint about bullying, harassment or sexual misconduct in the workplace, including who may be best placed to receive any such complaint. So this goes to the issue of who should receive the complaint. Secondly, best practice procedures for receiving and handling complaints about bullying, harassment or sexual misconduct in the workplace. C, the circumstances in which it may be appropriate to conduct an internal investigation into allegations of bullying, harassment or sexual misconduct, which may also constitute criminal conduct, and the appropriate person or body to conduct such an internal investigation. This review should make any recommendations considered appropriate for improving policies and procedures concerning bullying, harassment and sexual misconduct. And the consultation for the review Ms Gowd's undertaking also includes relevant persons or bodies with expertise in addressing bullying, harassment or sexual misconduct in the workplace, as considered appropriate by Ms Gowd. And the review should also include consultation with the New South Wales presiding officers and the Department of Parliamentary Services in relation to practices currently in place to manage allegations of bullying, harassment and sexual misconduct. Mr Speaker, I chose to take this action to make sure that we stress test every single process we have in place. I want to make sure that every single staff member who works in this place or works in a ministerial office or works in an electorate office knows that they will be protected if they come forward with any level of allegation or any action which they feel has occurred to them. And I want that made abundantly clear. And the reason why I didn't publicly announce the action I took was that I want this to be robust. I want the report to come to me directly, and if there's any loopholes we have, we will address them.
And before I take the question from the member for Holsworthy, I do intend just to add, Premier, to your comments, which I welcome, particularly in relation to this House, because as one of the two presiding officers, I wanted to emphasise again the importance that this issue is placed in the context of the parliamentary administration and the presiding officers. I wanted to also indicate that we have already been in consultation with Ms Goward. It's not something that I wanted to disclose because that was a confidential process that the Premier had initiated, but both myself and the President, along with both clerks and the CEO of DPS, have met with Ms Goward and have ongoing communications in terms of a cooperative approach, mindful of the fact that within this precinct, the executive arm of government does not have control over the way that parliamentary staff operate, but there's obviously merit in having a consistency of approach across all government.
So will there be consultation with staff as well?
I will continue, please. The feedback of staff is always welcome. The feedback of members is always welcome. Just please be quiet. 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 Let me finish, please. I'm making a statement. There has also been. There has also.
A president who is a man, a speaker.
I'm going to ask you to please be quiet. Please be quiet.
In a secret review.
Please be. You are not showing respect to the chair or to this parliament. Please be quiet.
Come on.
There is also a process of consultation which is going on as we speak through both of our privileges committees in this parliament. There is an ongoing process which is currently live through both privileges committees of both houses, where there is a recommendation before those committees for compliance officer to be appointed to this place, as well as for modification to the code of conduct. That is a matter which is before both those committees at the moment, and which members can give input to, and in fact there was potential for. There is also a real question in terms of the code of conduct and how we properly show dignity, courtesy and respect to all people in this place. In addition to all those processes, I have been in discussions with a number of members, and I welcome any input or feedback from the member for Newtown or any other member in this place in terms of our existing processes and procedures and protocols, but also in terms of any additional measures or any additional feedback, some of which will be treated confidentially, but some of which goes through a proper process. Now, I wanted to get that on the record. I'm happy to hear feedback. Quiet. I'm happy to hear feedback from people outside this chamber. It's not the appropriate place to engage in a dialogue. But if there's... I have announced it publicly in the House, and if I hadn't have done that, I'd be criticised for that. I'm happy to have the dialogue. If there's a point of order, I'm happy to take it. But otherwise, I'm more than happy to continue any discussion outside, which is with the appropriate place.
Speaker.
Member for Newtown.
Thank you, Speaker. I'd like to make a personal reflection because I feel that some of the...
You'd like to make a personal explanation?
Personal explanation.
Okay. Well, the time to do that is not right now, but I will give you the opportunity immediately following question time.
Thank you,
Point
Speaker.
of order.
Yes.
There has just been a statement in the House. However, it's a ministerial statement. There is obviously should be an opposition. There should be an opportunity for people in this.
Quiet, please.
Well, it wasn't. He just said it was a statement on a public process.
From the independent chair. Okay.
Yeah, from the chair on a matter of public process. When there is a statement announcing a policy in the House, there is an
I'm not announcing a policy. There's no point of order. There's no point of order. I'll now take the question from the member for Holsworthy. Thank you. You know, you're out of order. Member for Holsworthy. Thank you.
Directed to the Minister for Local Government. Minister, can the Ministry update the House on how the government is encouraging more women to enter the local government?
Oh, what a
Minister.
joke.